Chair of the Planning Advisory Committee. Wow, we got a really big echo. You got that fixed? There we go. Thank you. I couldn't hear anybody either. I'll start the meeting by giving a brief overview of what the Planning Advisory Committee's mandate is, as well as a breakdown of how the meeting will progress. I've still got a really loud feedback. The Planning Advisory Committee consists of 9 citizens of St. John who have been appointed by the Okay, I got a thumbs up, but it's still really loud. Do I sound that loud normally? I'll speak smoothly and quiet, like I always do. So, getting back to my preamble here. The Planning Advisory Committee consists of 9 citizens of St. John who have been appointed by the city's nominating committee. Our role is to provide advice to Common Council on applications to amend the municipal development plans, zoning bylaws, or Section 39 conditions, land for public purposes, and make decisions respecting proposals for conditional uses. Our views and opinions are independent. Tonight's meeting will progress as follows. Shortly, the committee will adopt the agenda for this evening's meeting. We'll do a roll call for the members of the committee who are present for tonight's meeting. Then we approve, there are no minutes to approve. They'll declare any conflict of interest for this evening's agenda. We'll then go through this evening's application and follow that agenda until it is complete. For each application, city staff will provide an overview presentation. Once their presentation is finished, committee members will have an opportunity to ask questions for clarification to the staff member. Following this, we will ask the applicant to make a presentation. Please keep in mind that all presentations shall be kept to 10 minutes. Once the applicant has finished their presentation, the committee may ask for follow-up questions. We'll then open up for public hearing. We have a list of members that wish to speak. Each speaker has 10 minutes to speak, and please avoid repetition of concerns or viewpoints. If a large group is present to speak and holds the same viewpoints, we encourage the delegation of a single representative speaker. The committee may have questions following each presentation. Please note, the committee has read any letters or comments submitted for this meeting. We cannot accept any last-minute presentations because of publication deadlines. The committee may ask the applicant to return to respond to any comments that came up in the public hearing. Once the public hearing section is closed, no further comments may be made by the public or the applicant. At this point, there can only be questions or clarification to city staff by the committee. The chair will then look for a motion and the committee will vote on the motion. This will conclude the matter and we'll continue on to the next application. Once all applications have been heard, the committee may discuss any further business matters. Finally, the chair will look for a motion to conclude the meeting and the committee will hold a vote to adjourn. Please remember that this is a safe space and that we ask for everybody to conduct themselves in a respectful manner. Should anybody interrupting the proceedings will receive one warning to refrain from disrupting the meeting. Should disruptions continue, they will be asked to leave. Members of the public, you are welcome to stay and listen to the debate and decision of the committee. However, you are welcome to leave once your application has been discussed. Should you have any follow-up questions, please contact city staff. And we'll move on to the meeting. So I'll first of all ask for a motion for the tonight's agenda. Terry and Ann McShane. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Pass. Next, we'll do a roll call. I'm Brad Mitchell, the chair of the Planning Advisory Committee. Matthew Dellas. Ann McShane. Councillor Jerry Lowe. Councillor Gary Sullivan. Phil Como. Peter Pappas. Terry Hutchinson. And we have one member who is absent, Alicia Aldermeyer. Thank you. Now, we will go on to the application. The first item is delegation of temporary use for approval.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, that's a little loud. I have a very, very brief overview of what's being requested tonight. So in your package, there is a letter that was provided by Common Council, written by Her Worship the Mayor, and it is requesting that PAC delegate their temporary use approval authority to the development officer. Currently, any applications for temporary uses, which are allowed to occur for up to 1 year, must come to PAC in order to receive approval. Over the last few years, we've had some of these applications, but we are seeing an increase of them. And more often, they are tied to development projects, typically residential developments. In the past few years, all the applications that have been brought forward have been given your consent for it and have been basically occurring in line with the rezoning processes that were already taking place. By delegating the temporary use authority to the development officer, it would facilitate staff to review these applications and to issue approval for those that meet our requirements. For those where staff feel additional look is required, we can choose to bring them forward to PAC for ones that might be a bit more complicated. This is done at the risk of the applicant, so they understand that the approval is for 1 year. They are required to complete a rezoning process or Section 59 amendment, and they understand that typically what it would facilitate would be initial site work for a project. So this will allow developers and applicants to take advantage of contractor time that they have, and to kind of get ahead of some of the constraints we have living in Canada, where we do have a fairly long winter. I'm able to answer any questions that you might have on this. So we believe this will really facilitate affordable housing projects, for instance, as it will enable these applications to be reviewed and processed within a matter of a couple weeks, as opposed to a 2 to 3 month process.
Is it just the initial site preparation that's usually the extent of the temporary use, or how far could they go?
So the temporary use would be for the full use. So if someone's applying and they want to build a 10-unit affordable housing project, the temporary use would be for the 10-unit affordable housing project. What we typically see happen, however, is that the type of work that usually ends up happening is typically limited to site prep. They would be required to go through the permitting process. There would obviously be logistics in order to get financing. So this, typically what we'll see is it'll largely be site prep. That's typically what we've seen in the past. And usually what we're seeing is these applications are being processed at the same time as a rezoning. So they could have approval, and then usually 3 to 4 months later, they'll have the full rezoning, which would probably timeline-wise work well with site prep and then preparing necessary detailed design in order to facilitate a building permit.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I think I'm comfortable with this and based on your introduction, so I'm able to certainly applaud council in looking for ways to expedite development in light of the housing crisis. I do have fears of precedent setting or putting the cart before the horse where people perhaps might prematurely make investments, presuming that they have a larger approval than they currently hold. So if you could just tell me ways we can risk mitigate that, that would be great. Thanks.
So with these approvals, when we would grant it, we would make it very clear that this is for a 1-year time period. And at the end of that 1-year time period, the use ceases to be allowed, except if they go through and get their rezoning in place. Typically, when we go through these now, the applicant is usually looking to rezone already. That's their main application. And then they're looking for ways to see if they can start initial site work in advance. So those are the scenarios where we're seeing those applications. Typically, people aren't coming in and saying, I want a temporary use, I'll rezone later. It's usually part and parcel because they do need to have their plans in place for where they think the building needs to go, what might be issues with the topography and things like that. So we will make sure it's very clearly laid out, and we do emphasize anything that's temporary is at the risk of the applicant. Thank you. Thanks.
Any other questions for staff on this? Are we having a public open? This is strictly, at this point, we would look for a motion.
Yeah, so do you have a resolution that is on my screen but is not up there?
I got a motion and I got a seconder. Jerry, any question? All those in favor? Those opposed? Thank you, that passed. Item 2 is the zoning bylaw text amendment. Who is doing this one? The text amendment? Mark Reed, okay.
Good evening, Chair Mitchell and committee members. The application before you this evening is a city-sponsored text amendment to the zoning bylaw. And what we're proposing to do is change provisions with respect to cutting and filling. Currently, the subsections of the bylaw provide for cutting and filling to occur if undertaken by a public utility. So primarily, utilities that are geared towards the provision of electrical or telecommunications infrastructure or natural gas. We're proposing to expand that to include any work performed by a government agency, i.e. a municipal, provincial, or federal level of government in addition to those public utilities. What that proposal would do is it would basically cover off additional provisions for those entities to undertake work. For example, our transportation and environment folks, St. John Water, are not covered under the zoning bylaw. It would also provide for instances where perhaps NB Housing could do cut and fill work for a site, or if we had a municipal housing agency as well to start work on affordable housing projects. Staff are proposing that that section of the bylaw be amended to include cutting and filling provisions to those government agencies. In terms of engagement, notification was provided of the upcoming public hearing on the city's website on May 16th. And you have before you in our report the staff recommendation to approve the zoning bylaw text amendment.
Thank you. Do any committee members have questions on this matter? Can I get a motion to, this is public? Okay, so there's a public hearing on this. So is there anybody in the public that wishes to speak on this text amendment? Boy. Third call, is there anybody that would like to speak on this text amendment? At this point, I'd like to close public hearing. And I would ask for committee members, I've got a move by Terry and seconded by Phil Como. Any question? All those in favor? Opposed? Pass. Thank you. Next item. Next one is rezoning. Applicant is Housing New Brunswick. Location is 435 Woodward Avenue. It's presently stable residential or neighborhood community facility, and proposed is mid-rise residential. The Community Planning Act authorizes the Planning Advisory Committee to give its views to Common Council concerning proposed amendments to the zoning bylaw. Common Council will consider the committee's recommendation at a public hearing on Monday, June the 10th. If I can get staff's presentation, please.
Okay. Okay. Housing going to be seeking to construct two 10-unit buildings that are 2 stories in height. All 20 units will be 1-bedroom apartments, with both buildings featuring a shared laundry room on the first floor. The proposed development will have access on both Woodward Avenue and Boar's Head Road. The lot is currently vacant and heavily forested. Okay. So here's the site plan. Proposed development again is between Boar's Head and Woodward Avenue. Again, the lot is vacant and heavily forested. The middle of the lot will stay forested due to topographic and geographic reasons. There's just a lot of rock, but there will be a cut through from one side to the other. Subject site is located in the Milledgeville neighborhood from both Woodward Avenue and Boar's Head Road. The immediate neighborhood is mostly comprised of residential properties with single-family homes and duplexes, as well as instances of apartments. There are several schools in the immediate area, such as Milledgeville North and Samuel de Champlain, and various types of retirement homes and supportive facilities. While the sidewalk currently doesn't extend to the frontage of the subject property on Boar's Head Road, it is slated for extension later this year. The subject site and immediate neighborhood, excluding the previously mentioned nearby schools, are designated stable residential. Properties located within stable residential designation are intended to evolve over time from a land use and built form perspective. Given there are other instances of duplexes and apartments in the area, the proposal aligns with the intent of both from the perspective of gentle density as well as the aesthetic cohesion with the surrounding built environment. The subject site is currently zoned neighborhood community facility, and while the larger neighborhood is mostly zoned R1, 1-unit residential, and R2, 2-unit residential, there are instances of mid-rise residential, low-rise residential, and high-rise residential within the immediate area. The proposed development largely aligns with the standards established within the zoning bylaw and the RM zone, the mid-rise residential zone. Variances regarding the front yard setback will be reviewed and administered by the development officer prior to the issuance of building permits. Letters were sent to landowners within 100 meters of the subject property on May 6th, and public notice was posted on May 21st. Staff is recommending the rezoning from CFN neighborhood community facility to mid-rise residential, and staff are also recommending the placement of Section 59 conditions in relation to the accesses of both Woodward Avenue and Boar's Head Road to incorporate traffic calming elements to reduce instances of cut-through traffic.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Staff? Thank you. Is the applicant here
Virtually.
virtually? Okay. So I'll remind the applicant that they have 10 minutes. Please go ahead. State your name. Just one moment, please, while we get. Have you muted yourself? We're having all kinds of technical issues tonight, aren't we? We're learning, okay. It's just like school, eh, Gary? I get your snaps. Is that, am I supposed to jump or something?
I'm unsure of what is causing this. I don't have the IT at all. Unfortunately, I'm not IT. They just think I am.
The applicant, can you try to see whether we have some volume now?
Yep, for sure.
There
Can you
we
hear
go.
me now?
Excellent. All right. So I'll remind you that you have 10 minutes, and if you could please state your name.
Natalie Reed.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
I'm a provincial program consultant with Housing New Brunswick. I'm pleased to be here tonight as a representative of the organization and to be available to speak to the proposed development for Woodward Boar's Head Avenue for the development of new public housing, which will be owned and operated by the province of New Brunswick. And happy to answer any questions that may come up as part of the application.
So I would
Review.
ask if you've read staff recommendations and if you agree with those? Did you hear me? Am I on now? I thought I was. I'd ask the applicant whether you've read the staff recommendation and are in agreement with it.
I did hear the presentation, so I believe that's what we're aware of in terms of what we're expecting.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Do committee members have any questions for the applicant? No, thank you. At this time, I would ask if there's any public comments or public would like to speak on this application. The second request, does the public have any, would like to speak on this? Third and final. That's a final call for comments. And at this point, I'll close the public hearing and committee discussion. Any questions with staff or any recommendations?
Move the recommendation.
Second by Terry Hutchinson. Any question? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Next item on the agenda, that's 3.3, 3.4. The applicant is 647102 New Brunswick Limited. The location is 901 Foster Thurston Drive, PID 55242-945. The existing plan is park and natural area outside the primary development, and the proposed plan is a park and natural area within the primary development. Application type is municipal plan amendment, and the Community Planning Act authorizes the Plan Advisory Committee to give its views to common councils concerning proposed amendments to the municipal plan and zoning bylaw. Common Council will consider the committee's recommendation at a public hearing on Monday, June 10th, I'm sorry. At this point, I'll ask for staff presentation.
Oh, here. There we go. We're back on track. Thank you, Chair Mitchell. I'll point out, I just noticed there is one typo in the report under decision history. It should read October 30th, 2023, not October 30th, 2023. This application before you, it's a municipal plan amendment for the site at 901 Foster Thurston. The former Cherry Brook Zoo site. The applicant is proposing to amend the boundary of the primary development area to include the site within the primary development area, and that would allow them to connect to municipal services that currently are located in front of the site on Foster Thurston Drive. This is an aerial photo here showing their proposal. There are numerous buildings on the site, which the former Cherry Brook Zoo occupied. The applicant has purchased these lands from the city and is in the process of converting the buildings and constructing new buildings to allow for a child care facility. What this amendment will do is it will allow them to connect the site to municipal services, water and sanitary sewer, without using an on-site well and on-site sewage disposal system. The site is located in Milledgeville along Foster Thurston Drive, immediately opposite the developing Fieldstone Estates subdivision and Fieldstone Drive. This is a view of the site looking from Fieldstone Estates towards the site driveway. Municipal plan has it designated as park and natural area, and you can see on the screen the heavy dark line is the PDA boundary, and it runs generally along the front of the site, along the closest edge of the Foster Thurston Drive boundary. The plan amendment would include the site in the primary development area. This section of Foster Thurston Drive is serviced, and it would allow, as I said before, for connection to municipal water and sanitary sewer for both existing and new buildings on the site. Over the longer term, staff are of the opinion this provides for environmental sustainability because we would have this development connected to city services and eliminate any issues that could go wrong with a well or on-site septic, and potentially, have environmental issues on surrounding city-owned land in Rockwood Park. The application is supported by both St. John Water and Infrastructure Development and conforms to the municipal plan and the provincial statements of public interest. It is zoned park, which does permit a daycare facility, and the zoning is not changing. Staff's recommendation is to approve the municipal plan amendment, and letters were sent out to landowners within 100 meters of the subject site on May 16th, or May 7th rather, and an ad for the upcoming public hearing was posted on the website on May 16th as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have questions? And okay, please go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Mark, I just have a question. To me, this looks like it's just more housekeeping than anything. Typically, the PDA is just any place that's serviced, and this is serviced. There's no infrastructure being added, is there?
No, there's no city infrastructure being added. It would just be a matter of, running a connection from the site out to that existing main that's in the road. So it's not a case where we're essentially pulling pipe down, 200-300 meters of street to kind of leapfrog a greenfield area of development. The pipe is in, and the pipe has been in for some time. It was extended to that area back in probably the early 2000s to alleviate some servicing issues and provide some water looping and redundancy for the Kennebecasis Drive area. So we have a loop system in that end of Milledgeville.
Was it left out of the PDA originally? Was that just because it was park?
I think probably because of that side of the road. The PDA would have encompassed Fieldstone Estates, which would have been a developing subdivision at the time we did the plan, but probably given the fact that it was a zoo, and when we did the plan, we probably,
They were already using their own water
yeah,
setup?
they were already
Okay.
on a well in some form of holding tank or septic, so.
So it's recognition of, okay, of an existing PDA that wasn't recognized, basically. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other committee members have questions for staff? Thank you. Do we have an applicant on this matter? You could please come forward, state your name and whether you've read the staff report and if you agree with it.
Good evening. Thank you, everyone, for having me. My name is Erin Scryer, and I am the applicant with the team. And yes, I have read the staff report, and we are agreeable to everything that's in there and appreciate the recommendations that are there and different things that we need to look into. And thank you for your time.
Any members have any questions for the applicant? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other public that would like to speak on this matter? Anybody from the public that would like to speak positively or against this matter? Third and final. At this point, I will close public portion of this meeting. And I'll ask for committee discussion. I have Terry Hutchison and Phil Como, both have made motion and seconder. Question, all those in favor? Those opposed? Thank you very much. That finishes this matter. Next on the agenda. Next on the agenda, 3.5, Dunnett's Landscaping Limited, 50 Heatherway. Existing is stable residential. Designation is the zoning is 2-unit residential. Proposed zoning is mid-rise residential. The application is rezoning Section 59 amendment and subdivision. Community Planning Act authorizes the Planning Advisory Committee to give its views to Common Council concerning proposed amendments to the municipal plan and zoning bylaw. Common Council will consider the committee's recommendation at a public hearing on Monday, June the 10th, 2024. And I'll ask Mark to go ahead with the staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will point out in reviewing the report today, there is a slight change to, bear with me here, the recommendation item 3, where we are proposing the Section 59 conditions, PID 55190227 should be included. So there should be 5 PIDs there and not 4. So we'll have that amended recommendation in the report that goes forward to council. This application before you is a rezoning and subdivision for the site at 50 Heatherway. It's along the east side of Heatherway in the city's east end. The applicant is proposing to rezone the site from 2-unit residential R2 to mid-rise residential and to subdivide lands, including a new public street that would connect Heatherway and Grandview Avenue. This is a schematic here of the proposed development. They're proposing a series of townhouses in the western end of the site along the new road where it intersects Heatherway, and then in the eastern and southern portion of the site, they're proposing a series of 24-unit buildings, similar to those that are currently being constructed along Dunnett Drive. They are also proposing to subdivide the site into a series of lots for the proposed townhouses and multiple unit buildings and develop a public street to city standard. Site location, again, it's in the eastern end of the city, directly across Heatherway from Dunnett Drive and to the south of Wyatt Crescent and north of Grandview Avenue. The site was cleared back in the early 2000s with a previous development proposal that never was developed. You can see here there's an existing roadway into the site from Grandview Avenue and some clearing that has taken place back about 20 years ago, or about 2008 with the initial subdivision proposal at the time. Another view here looking from Heatherway where there was basically a roadway cut into the site to do some exploration of conditions. And then this is a view along Wyatt Crescent, showing some of the undeveloped area down in the far portion of the photo off to the right side of the road looking towards the east. This would be typically the multi-unit buildings that would be constructed, 3-story, 24 units, similar to those that have recently been constructed on Dunnett Drive. Municipal plan has the site designated stable residential. So when we look at developments such as this in the stable residential designation, we really look at compliance with policy LU88 that basically sets a framework for how the proposed development relates to the existing neighborhood. In terms of compatibility with the existing developed neighborhood, the zoning that is being proposed, mid-rise residential, there are areas within the neighborhood that currently exists with that zoning. And the building types as well exist in the neighborhood. We have multiple unit dwellings being constructed along Dunnett Drive. We have a fairly large, 2 fairly large multi-story multiple unit buildings on the north end of Heatherway along Hickey Road. And we have a mix of townhouse, single and 2-unit development. So it really is a mixed neighborhood in terms of densities and residential building topologies. So the proposed development does fit within that existing framework. Adequacy of servicing and transportation, the applicant has prepared a traffic impact statement, and their consultant has found that the proposed development will not have an added impact on the existing roadway network that cannot be handled with existing traffic control measures. Servicing is being reviewed. There may have to be a slight upgrade undertaken by the city to some sanitary sewer piping on Heatherway. That's still being evaluated. And in terms of the building design, again, the topologies are similar to what exists in the existing neighborhood. So given that, staff are of the opinion that the proposed development does meet the municipal plan policy and conforms to the municipal plan. In terms of zoning, the site is currently zoned R2, 2-unit dwelling, and the applicant is proposing to rezone the site to mid-rise residential. The development as proposed meets the RM zone standards with the exception of increased front yard setbacks, which can be handled at the building permit stage through a development officer variance. In terms of proposed Section 59 conditions, there were conditions imposed on the site in conjunction with the 2008 proposal regarding blasting. We note those conditions were imposed by the PAC of the day. Given the city does not regulate blasting, and it's a matter that's really regulated between the blaster and their insurance company and the relevant provincial regulations that govern blasting, we are recommending that those conditions that exist today pertaining to blasting be rescinded. With respect to conditions on the development, we're proposing standard infrastructure and other conditions with respect to the preparation of detailed site and building elevation plans for the building permit. And we're also consistent with a lot of the rezonings we've seen lately for multiple unit residential development. We're recommending that the front yard be landscaped to that commercial development standard that has a set number of trees and shrubs per square meter of front yard area. In terms of the subdivision, we're recommending for the necessary council assents with respect to the public street, money in lieu of land for public purposes, and any necessary local government services easements, and also the authorization of a city developer subdivision agreement to cover the installation of infrastructure and construction of the street by the developer. In terms of engagement, letters went out on May the 7th. And on May the 16th, we posted the public notice of the upcoming public hearing on our website. To date, we have not received any letters regarding the proposal. Staff recommendation is to rezone the site to mid-rise residential, consistent with the Section 59 conditions in the report recommended by staff, and to grant the necessary subdivision assents and authorizations. Thank you.
Thank you. Do committee members have any questions for staff at this time? Ann, please.
I'm just hoping you can educate me here. What's the difference between the yard landscaping for commercial zones versus residential zones?
Residential zones, the big difference is the tree planting. The commercial zones have that set requirement for number of trees per square meter of front yard, essentially.
Yep.
Residential zones have nothing.
So it's enhanced over?
It's enhanced over what we would normally get. Now, that being said, you know, the developments, or the buildings that have recently been constructed by the developer on the opposite side of Heatherway and Dunnet Drive, they have incorporated front yard landscaping, both shrubs and trees. It's a very nice looking development.
Okay, so the one that exists, this wouldn't happen with, but the new ones would. The other question I have is about the pre-blast surveys and the blasting. So in 2008, the PAC of the day, I don't know if I was here, but somebody was here, would have put on a pre-blast conditions. So what you're saying is it's provincially regulated. So just to walk it through for my understanding and for if you lived in the area, how would you get, like who do they talk to if they wanted a pre-blast survey?
Their best bet would be to talk to the developer. There are regulations covered by the province that, you know, are based on, my understanding is the conditions and the size of the blast that would determine a radius that blasting company would have to go out and essentially knock on doors and, you know, check wells and check houses and things of that nature. But I'd encourage people to, you know, reach out to the developer and, you know, have discussions with them, you know, if they have concerns. And blasting, blasting may not happen. It may be, the rock may be soft enough that it could be broken with, you know, a hydraulic hammer on an excavator, for example, right? So.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions for the staff at this time? Thank you. This time, I'll call upon the applicant to speak. Keep in mind you have 10 minutes. Please state your name for the record and let us know if you're in favor of staff recommendations.
My name is Bill Dunnett. I am the president of Dunnett's Landscaping. I have no issues with any of their suggestions. I will address the landscaping. I am a landscaper. I've been a landscaper for 35 years. So when I do something, that is the forefront of what I do. It's all about making it look good, because if it doesn't look good, it's not going to sell. And we like to sell things. Our proposal is to do 60 townhouses and 5 apartment buildings. The townhouses would start as early as this fall, but the apartment buildings, that is down the road. We've got 7 more buildings to complete on the other side of the road. The idea is we're building a company that we deal with the same contractors over and over, and we do one building every year. We started in June and we finish it in April. We have it full in April, and we have a pattern going, and we're doing very well at it right now. And generally speaking, the buildings are full before we finish the building. So the idea is finish the 7 buildings over on this side. So that's approximately 6 to 7 years on our schedule right now. We don't have any plans to increase the schedule. We're comfortable with what we're doing. I'm semi-retired. This was supposed to be a one-off. We thought we would do one, and all of a sudden things went a little crazy, and then it's 2, 3, 4, 5. You know, we've got our foundation in for the 5th one right now. So the apartments up on the top, that we would work our way to that. So while we're doing the apartments on one side, we'll do townhouses on the other. By the time we finish the townhouses, maybe the market will suggest, you know what, it's not worth doing apartment buildings. But we may come back and say, you know, we want to change this and continue with townhouses, because townhouses are the way to go. But we foresee that 7 years, there'll still be a demand for apartment buildings by everything that we've seen. I have Bryce Tays here from Don Moore Survey. If anybody has any technical questions, he can address those. If not, he can stay seated. Also, the blasting, I met with quite a few residents. I sent out a letter 2 months ago and invited anyone to give me a call. And then there was a few individuals that called me, and we had discussions. It was more regarding wells, and I think it has something to do with this pre-blasting that was there when I bought the property. The developer went in and he made a mess of the property, to be quite honest, on both sides of the road. He owned both pieces that I ended up buying from the bank. And he went in, and I think he blasted without any permission. I see where he's broke some rock. One of the residents told me that he broke some rock way, way, way down low, and it caused some water to come out of the bank, and he thinks he lost his well because of it. And so I had a great conversation with him, and our last resort would be to blast. I was a member of the group that developed Cedar Point Anchorage out in Milledgeville, Phase 2, and we did nothing but blast. And but that rock was really hard, and you just really couldn't break it. So we would blast right next to houses, and of the 100 and some homes that we put in, we never had an issue. Our blaster has to go and check everybody's house before he starts. He has to go and do a pre-blast survey. It has to carry insurance. And I can't say that we won't blast, but my my inclination, in fact, I've got someone lined up for 2 months' time to come in there and start because the site is just full of rock. It's, but we've got to cut the road down first before we even start. And I've got somebody coming in with a hammer to break all that rock out. And if we use a hammer, we can tend to use the rock later on in the process, because if you blast, you end up with big, big boulders, and they're not good for anything. So our preference is to break rock, and we would only be going, we wouldn't be in the area that the gentleman told me that the guy was blasting and caused all the problems. We'll start on Heather Way and work our way up the street, and the deepest we'll be going is 8 feet, because we're going to tend to build the street up because we are in rock. So the deepest we would ever have to go is 8 feet just to get the services in so we can get below frost. Other than that, that's all I have to say right now. If anybody has any questions or concerns.
Do any committee members have questions for the applicant? Councilor Lowe?
Yeah, you said that you're going to build 7 on the other side. Are you on the 5th one now with a 7, or are you building 7 more?
No, I'm sorry, I'm counting, as 7, I'm counting number 5.
Right,
We've
so
already
you got
done
2.
4.
You got 4.
got
You're
4
doing
done.
the
We can do
foundations
11.
for the 5th, right?
And we're just started 5, so when I say 7, that's counting.
So that's 2 more years, 6 and 7, correct?
2 more years.
Rough.
Pardon me?
2 more years roughly for the next 2?
There's 11 total, so we'll be there for another almost 6 years.
On that side, okay,
Yeah.
that's what I
And
wanted
in
to
the
know.
meantime, my thought is to do 10 units per year of townhouses. So that would take us to 6 years, and then we'd roll up and do the other 5 if the market's there.
Thank you. Any other committee members have questions? Thank you. We may call you back for any clarifications. I'll just now move on to the public. And if you'd like to make a presentation or make comments, please come forward and state your name.
Hi, my name's Margot Nilsson. This is my husband Terrence. We live on 1311 Grandview Avenue. So they knocked down trees in the winter this year, and we ended up with water in our basement after the very, very heavy rains that we had at the end of March. So March 24th, we had 3 inches of rain in our basement. My husband's lived there 32 years. Never had any water in the basement. They knocked them down. They didn't cut them, they knocked them down. And we got water in our basement. And then Good Friday, we had more water in the basement. On Sunday, we had so much we had to call the fire department to get the water out. So our concern is, how is this going to be prevented? I mean, he's lived there 32 years. I've been with him 10. We've never had water. And now we do. And 2.5 years ago, we put in a paved driveway. And it came down the side of the driveway, so now our driveway is crumbling as well. So these are concerns that we have as far as how is this development going to affect our home. Actually, and when, sorry, this gentleman over here, I don't remember your name, when he mentioned, or no, I think it might have been Mr. Dunnett, said about years ago when the previous owner had cut those trees down. It happened then too, because his driveway was gravel then, and it washed out, and the city had to come and replace the driveway because he couldn't use his driveway. So this isn't the first time it's happened because they've taken those trees down. So we're just really concerned about how this is going to affect our home. Thank you.
Is there anybody else in the public that would like to speak on this application?
My name is Dwayne Whalen, and I live at 45 Wyatt, which is about, oh, I guess I can't show you from here. Anyways, there's a part right off of Wyatt there. It kind of goes up and over a little bit. And many of the neighbors use that as like a parking area to stay off the street, which we use to, which will help with the snow clearing operations during the winter. And myself included, I drive a school bus as well. And I usually park there. And if I'm on the street, that could hinder snowplow operations. So that is one concern I have there. A neighbor of mine who couldn't be here today had addressed a concern similar to the lady who was just here. She sent me a text, which I will read. My main concerns with this new development, and she's at 50 Wyatt, if that matters anything, on the hill behind my home are about drainage issues. I've had to deal with this over the years when grades are changed in the neighborhood and have spent a lot of money on drainage. I'm worried about how this excavation will affect my property. So I've seen her in previous years, she's a little old lady as well, take rocks just to try to divert the rain a little bit from when they were tearing that up from years previously. So that's a concern she has with that. And the other one is that little area up there. What's it going to be used for? I don't know how I can point to it, but I have a letter. It's a letter that was sent out. Who can I show this to?
Show it to me, and I'll,
It is that area right there.
so it's the third building, third on Wyatt.
The Wyatt, there's 1, 2, and then there's a little thing right there.
Yes, kind of a key,
So that's
yes.
right there. I just want to know what that was going to be used for. So,
Okay,
yeah, I think that was my main concerns that I wanted to bring up.
okay, we'll ask the applicant after this.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay.
Any committee members have questions for the citizen? We'll have some questions for the applicant. Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak?
I'm Faye Whalen. I live at 45 Wyatt Crescent. And I just have a couple of things, actually. One was the letter that was sent to the residents, and it said that all residents within 100 meters. We actually live across the street and further away from the development, and we received a letter, and our neighbor did not. And she is like, it's directly in her backyard. So that was one thing that kind of I questioned, I guess. The second thing would be, has there been a study done as far as like the local schools for the number of students, things like that? Because schools seem to be at a capacity as it is. So I'm just wondering if that's been done. So, thank you.
Committee members have any questions for this presentation? Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public that wish to speak for or against this applicant? Second call. Final call. And now close. No, we have to bring the applicant back, sorry. And we have some questions for the applicant before we close this. Sorry. I always jump ahead there, don't I? So we have a few questions for you. And if you want to get started.
Yeah, I can start. Thanks, Mr. Chair. So a few of the residents have brought up stormwater runoff issues with past tree clearing. So I guess it's not, it's not limited just to blasting issues.
Okay.
It's stormwater
So,
runoff.
so this winter, we went in and we took a mulcher and we mulched just the road. We didn't, and we went a little wider so that we would take some more trees for the fronts of the lots. So while I had them in there, we got it done. I did have a call from Jeff Sear concerning their concern. And Jeff is, I thought he might be here tonight, but he said he might, but he didn't. Anyway, so Jeff came out. I said, well, Jeff, listen, as far as I know, water doesn't run uphill, it runs downhill. And the land slopes from Heatherway straight up to the top of the hill. And we followed that road and it slopes straight down. So all the water comes running down. On their side, which would be the Grandview side, there's a hill that goes up over and then goes back down onto their property. So our property, so Jeff came out and we walked the land and I said, Jeff, you know, I welcome you to come out because I'm going to this meeting in 2 weeks and this is going to be brought up, I'm sure. And he came out with me and we walked it and he goes, yep, there's no way you're dumping water. The water's running down the hill, not up the hill. So Jeff's opinion was that it was coming from their neighbor on the other side of them and running down. We walked right up and followed it the whole way up. And I even last summer put a swale so that there would be no water could go onto their property.
So,
can you comment on this a little bit of how we will control water in the future? Yeah. Because when we do a stormwater plan, we're about 30 feet higher than Boyaner Crescent. And so we had to control all our water on the other property. I've had 2 residents come to me in the last month on Boyaner and go, we were so worried about what you were going to do to our property. And in fact, you fixed all of our water problems because we have to control, we're not allowed to release any water from our property onto a neighboring property. So if there was a problem, we could try to fix it, but it's going uphill, so I don't know how we would fix it.
yeah, so myself, I don't know the topology of this area or what, and Jeff Sears, as brilliant as he is as a planner, that's still largely anecdotal. He just works for Envision. So I guess I'm curious, like if you have somebody expert, and then I will have a question for staff as well of what we require and how, like, what do we have in place for those types of protections?
If you could state your name, please, occupation.
Good evening. I'm Bryce Days, Donmore Surveys and Engineering, the civil consultant for the applicant. So I understand there's some stormwater issues today. I can't really speak to that. I wasn't aware. But for the future, when we're constructing stuff, we have to abide by the city stormwater design criteria manual, which states we can't direct water onto adjacent properties. As well, we have to limit our pre-development or post-development flows to pre-development levels, which we will do so by using stormwater ponds, much like the opposite side of the road, Dunnet Drive area. In my opinion, we would actually improve the Wyatt Drive direction by intercepting the flows and directing them into these ponds. I noticed on Wyatt Drive there is some improvements that people have done in the recent years, gravel swales and such. We would actually reduce the amount of flow going in their direction by doing this development and bringing them to our stormwater ponds. So if it's the Wyatt residents that are concerned about that, I think that this will actually improve that. If it's the Grandview, like Bill Dunna has said, I'm not quite sure, based on the grading of the site, how this would run onto them. I haven't been to site recently to see that, but I just can't understand it from a grading point of view.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like I'm asking stupid questions because I'm stupid in this regard. So how do they measure? Like, how does somebody go, okay, we won, we succeeded there, we made sure there was 0 milliliters of whatever. I don't, like, what's the measurement that you guys use?
Yeah, so
Help
it's
me
based
out.
on,
Yeah.
So it's based on rainfall data. We take historical rainfall data, apply peak factors to it and stuff, and do modeling of it. So we'll take like a 1 in 100 year storm is typically used for like a major drain. So we can simulate that with modeling software and stuff and running it through different sort of reaches and catchments and prove that before we touched the site, this is what it looked like. This is how much water was running in this direction. After we touched the site, put it into our storage ponds, we reduced what the peak flow is after development. So it's a whole matching game of what it is pre and
Okay.
post.
And if it fell short in some regard, you'd still be responsible for reparation.
Right, we would have to increase our storage to accommodate that.
Okay. Thanks. That helps me start that anyways, that understanding. Thanks.
Do we have any other questions? No, we don't accept questions from the public to the, no, at this time. Does anybody else on the committee have questions? Do we have any questions to city staff on this as the infrastructure? Is Joel here? Joel? Do you want to address this matter of stormwater? If you could state your name and, please.
I'm Joel Landers. I'm a missile engineer in infrastructure development. So as Bryce said, and similar to Bryce, I haven't been to the site to see the Grandview versus Heather Way and the topography, so I was not aware of the drainage concern raised today. But as Bryce had mentioned, they will have to meet the 1 in 100 year flows, will have to meet the pre and post, and also the 1 in 5. So we have those submissions with the building permit come into my department, and we review those to make sure that the drainage does improve by the end of the project.
Thank you. Any questions to the municipal staff? I have questions for the applicant, so if I could ask him to reply. I have a couple questions. I think some other people may. So I go back to the question that they had regarding the two pieces of land that are going into attaching to Wyatt. Is there a plan for that, those two kind of keys that are going up into, or is that just part of the property?
So there's one on the corner, and then there's the one in the middle. There's those the two properties you're talking about? The idea is to turn those into residential lots.
But you won't, the road won't, there'll be no driveway from Wyatt.
There'll be driveways from, those will be two independent residential lots.
Oh, okay.
So we'll be adding two more houses on. Now, the third entrance going into Wyatt, the first one that you see, there's another, like a smaller one. That's going to be a municipal easement to put services down to Wyatt. About halfway through the project, we have to switch from directing all our flow to Heatherway to directing the flow. And so that lot would be used for a municipal easement so that we can run our infrastructure through there. There's not enough flow, as I understand it, to do the whole project right from Heatherway.
Okay, thank you. The other question I had is regard to the road going to Grandview. Are you doing that right away, or is that
It'll be
being
phased.
in?
Yes.
So it won't be built until the apartment buildings are?
Exactly. That would be probably, what we would do is we'd have temporary cul-de-sacs as we phase.
Yes.
So if we do the first two units, then we'd have a temporary. And then once we get to probably around the turn, economically, it would make sense just to run the road through while we were doing it.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question. Councilor Lowe, you have a question for the applicant?
Going back to Grandview, the lady from Grandview, you said that you had talked to some of the neighbors. Was that on the other side or this side?
I talked to,
I guess the bottom line is, did you talk to that neighbor?
no, but I sent letters to them.
Did she talk to you?
No. I did talk to her next door neighbor, though.
No,
The-
but
the-
she's,
the one-
yeah, but this is the one that's complaining.
Yeah, she
though.
never called me.
No, she never called you.
No.
So whereabouts in Grandview?
But I did have a complaint from Jeff Sear from the city, because she must have
Oh, yeah,
called Jeff
but
Sear.
I understand
Yeah.
that. But I mean, she never notified you that her basement had been
Never.
flooded?
No.
Where's her house? Do you know where her house is in that?
Yep.
Where?
I have a good idea.
I see where the drive comes out from the new,
Okay,
where your
so-
4 units are, 5 units.
It would be.
I know you can't crawl up the wall.
Yeah, pretty tall.
Or don't crawl up the wall.
That big square, like where it says Grandview, then the next lot, is one of those two lots, as far as I know.
Well, I'm sure you would, I mean, you're not going to go over there for a while, that's for sure. other
Well, no,
than put the road?
And the fact is where we cleared is probably close to 150 feet from their property.
But you'd have no
And it
problem.
goes uphill.
You'd have no problem talking to her if she
Oh,
calls you.
no,
would
no,
you?
no.
That's good.
Any
But
other?
I think Jeff Sear should have went back to her and told her what he found, because he came out to see me about it.
Are there any other committee members have questions for the applicant at this time? Thank you.
Okay.
At this time, we'll conclude public hearing. So at this time,
Chair, I was just
yeah.
wondering if I could ask a question to the lady from Grandview Avenue.
Oh, we just closed
Is that
public
too
hearing.
late? Too late?
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry about that.
Okay.
So at this point, committee members, are there questions for staff? Any other comments? Ann?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just have a question for staff, so I'm just going to beat the dead horse of drainage here. So I live in the neighborhood. All the plans happen. Somebody measures it before and then measure it after, and it gets signed off on. And then someone still feels they don't, like they still feel it may have caused something. Let's just pretend that 100-year storm gets more frequent. I don't know. So what's their recourse? So what do they do?
Do I have to state my name again?
Please.
Okay, sorry. It's Joel Landers again.
Yeah.
So what they would do is call into the city, and we go out and investigate their drainage concern. The plans that come in are stamped by a professional engineer who is certifying that there wasn't an issue. So we will identify the issue. Hopefully, we will at least go out and inspect it and see what we feel is causing the issue, and hopefully find some sort of resolution. This will become a public street as part of this process. So the city of St. John would take it over after the fact, so that we would be able to help address any drainage concerns.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Peter?
Just to reiterate what we've heard from a couple of people for the benefit of the neighbors, every time one of these subdivisions get built, it interferes with all the flows and it controls the water. And I haven't heard from anybody after a subdivision's been built up that it hasn't improved their issues. And that's been over many, many years. That's been my experience. So if that helps you at all.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions at this time? I'll look for a motion. I have a motion from Terry to accept the staff recommendation, seconded by Councillor Sullivan. Any question? All those in favor? Opposed? And it's passed. Thank you. That concludes item 3.5. Next item on the agenda is 3.6. Yeah. So if you can stay, or if you like, or. Yeah, they don't want to stay for this exciting event. The next item on the agenda, on 3.6, is rezoning and Section 59 amendment for 2400 Westfield Road. The applicant is Janice and Richard Hunt. The landowner is Derek Logan. Location is 2400 Westfield Road. Plan designation, rural settlement. Existing zoning is rural general commercial, and the proposed zoning is rural settlement residential. The application type, rezoning and Section 59 amendment. The Community Planning Act authorizes the Planning Advisory Committee to give its views to Common Council concerning proposed amendments to the zoning bylaws and amendments to the Section 59 conditions on the subject property. Common Council will consider the committee's recommendation at a public hearing on Monday, June 24th, 2024. At this time, get staff presentation, please.
Thank you. So as said, this is for 2400 Westfield Road, and it's a rezoning and Section 59 amendment. On screen, you can see the proposal. In 2004, this site was rezoned from an institutional zoning to a commercial, to convert what was formerly a church into a cabinetry shop, showroom, and associated dwelling. At the time, Section 39 conditions were placed on it, limiting it to that exact proposed cabinetry shop and associated uses. And new owners would like to rezone it, remove those conditions, and then convert it to a single-family residential dwelling. The site is located along Westfield Road at the corner of Belmont Road, and this area is largely zoned rural settlement residential. In the image on the screen, you can see the existing building. There are no proposed changes to the exterior beyond some removal of the commercial-related signage, and so the building typology is already residential in nature. Here's another image of that site looking north along Westfield Road, and then a final image looking south along Westfield Road with that subject site just out of sight on the far left. This just shows that the surrounding neighborhood is low-density residential. The site was designated as rural settlement in the municipal plan, which promotes low-density residential that fits the character of the community. And the proposed redevelopment of this commercial use to residential is in alignment with the municipal plan. The current zoning is rural general commercial, and the proposed rezoning would change it to rural settlement residential, and that is compatible with the surrounding development pattern, and it would allow them to move back to a purely residential use. For engagement, letters were sent to all landowners within 100 meters of the subject property on May 6th. Public notice was posted on May 16th, and we received one letter in support of the rezoning. So staff are recommending to rezone the site to rural settlement residential and remove those Section 59 conditions as it conforms to the municipal plan and the zoning bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you. Do committee members have any questions for staff at this time? Thank you. This time, I'd ask the applicant to speak. If you could speak on your name and remind you that you have 10 minutes. And if you're read the staff recommendation, and if you're in favor of it.
Hi, I'm Richard Hunt. My wife Janice behind me. We purchased this property. The sale closes a week on Friday. We have no need of a commercial zoning, so we'd like to change it back to residential to convert the workshop into residential, into additional living space. The house itself is essentially a one-bedroom, the attached part of it, so we just want to add additional living space into what is the workshop. That's it.
Thank you. Do committee members have any questions for the applicant? All right. Is anybody in the public have anything to say on this matter, for or against? Second call. Third and final call. Do we have any questions for staff? No, I thought we did this. Okay, now we close public hearings. I have problems with this public hearing thing. I got to get used to this. That's right here. That's right. So at this point, we'll close public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
So committee, do you have any questions, Ann?
No, I'm just saying I love these types of applications where they revert from a commercial to a residential. They're rather easy, so happy to move staff recommendation. Yeah.
I have a motion. Do I have a seconder? Councilor Lowe, question? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you very much. Good luck. That concludes 3.6. 3.7, rezoning and Section 59 amendment for 15 O'Brien Street. Jordan Van Thiel is a landowner, 15 O'Brien Street. Plan designation is stable residential. Existing zoning is general commercial. Proposed zoning is 2-unit residential. Community Planning Act authorizes the Planning Advisory Committee to give its views to Common Council concerning proposed amendments to the zoning bylaw. Common Council will consider the committee's recommendation at a public hearing on Monday, June 24th, 2024. Staff recommendation, staff presentation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excuse me. The applicant is seeking to rezone the property from general commercial to 2-unit residential, as well as remove the existing Section 59 conditions that were tied to the development proposal that incorporated the adjacent property, but had never materialized. Subject site currently houses a 2-unit home that was initially constructed circa 1985. The subject site is in the Greendale neighborhood, situated between Fairville Boulevard and Manomoganis Road. Being located squarely between Manomoganis Road and Fairville Boulevard, subject site sits on the dividing line between commercial activity and residential neighborhood. Subject site and the residential aspects of the neighborhood are designated stable residential. Given the existing building is a 2-unit home and that there are no intentions of redevelopment, the subject site aligns with the municipal plan. Subject site is again zoned general commercial, while the residential aspects of the neighborhood are prominently 1-unit and 2-unit residential. The broader commercial lands are zoned general commercial and regional commercial. The original zoning of the property was 2-unit residential and was rezoned to general commercial on September 26, 2022 to facilitate a larger development that also incorporated the property located at 730 Wilson Street, adjacent to 15 O'Brien. Again, that development never materialized. Letters were sent to landowners within 100 meters of the subject property on May 6th, and public notice was posted on May 21st. Staff is recommending to rezone the site from general commercial to 2-unit residential and remove the existing Section 59 conditions that were attached to the previous proposal that did not come to pass. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee have any questions? Councilor Lowe?
The sentence here that the 2 properties are separately owned.
Correct.
Like, when I go back to that development, it was a development that was under a numbered company. Like, I don't understand. I mean, I have no problem with what's taking place. In fact, I kind of like it. But when you say the White House was owned separately than the building below it, and the company was developing them together, that's the part I don't understand. Did you talk to the people that are moving into this house?
No, I did talk to their...
Are they living there right now, and have they lived there?
I talked to their realtor earlier this month. They actually moved and got the approval of sale on May 7th. So technically the new ownership is already in place for the family.
Anyways.
Yeah, so the 2 properties are independently owned, or even more so now at this point. So the only property owner that was involved with the previous development owns 730 Wilson, but 15 O'Brien is in the possession of the family that bought it on May 7th.
My argument is, I guess it's not an argument, how could they be separately owned if we divide? But if they're separately owned going into this, and it was a numbered company that was going to develop 105 units, whatever it was a company of those 2 guys that didn't come to PAC, that came to council. I remember quite vividly. So how can it say now they were separately owned then?
They weren't at the time, but when when the partnership broke up, one person got one piece of the land and one got the other, or properties, I should say. And this is now leading to one of those partners having sold the 15 O'Brien to the local family.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you. Yep. So at this point, I'll ask for public hearing. A second call for any public input. Third and final call for public input. Final call. Nothing for the applicant is not here. So at this point, we will close the public hearing. Committee recommendation, Councillor Sullivan, second by Terry Hutchinson. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you very much. That concludes those 7 items. Any new business? Next meeting?
You should be proud of yourselves, less than an hour and a half and 7 items.